I'm Gordon. I'm the CEO of ReSpark, and I'm here with Courtney, our head of product. And today is all about financials, specifically getting your financial records, i.e., your accounting system, out of the back and forth between your yard operation system, like ReSpark, and a separate accounting program. So we're going to cover two things during this webinar. I'll walk through the headaches that come from running ReSpark and something like an external financial system like QuickBooks side by side. And then Courtney will show you ReSpark's embedded general ledger system that we built right into ReSpark. We'll also talk about obviously onboarding, implementation, and some early access on that for folks on the phone. And then we'll get into the finance agent because ultimately, we here at ReSpark are not just trying to copy what an accounting program already does. We are trying to rethink the work itself in a more AI first way. So again, we'll run about 35 minutes with time for questions, and feel free to drop them in the chat as we go. Cool. So again, overall agenda. First thing, we'll talk about this kind of two system headache and running your financial system in a separate system in the accounting system we built, the finance agent, and then obviously what's next. So let's start with part one. Again, your financials living now inside of ReSpark. And the first thing we're going to do is just take a step back and identify and understand the problem with running two systems before getting into a product demo. So ultimately, and again, a lot of folks on the phone are probably dealing with issues like this today. Your day-to-day operations, right? Scale tickets, inventory, other yard operations are running in ReSpark today, which is effectively your operational system of record. Your actual general ledger and accounting software, i.e. your financial system of record, lives somewhere else, whether that be QuickBooks or Sage or Microsoft Dynamics, et cetera. That is living in a completely external system. And the problem is that when your operations are, in one system and your books are in another, even with a live and direct integration like we offer, everything that needs to be moved over needs to either sync either immediately end of day or end of month. And typically the gap between that, right, the reconciliation, tickets changing, different suppliers getting mapped, and so on and so forth, create a good amount of friction at month end that we're looking to solve. So in terms of expanding on those problems a little bit, we've obviously done our best with different financial integrations to mitigate what this friction looks like. But at the end of the day, with different edits or different voids that are happening either in prior periods or current periods, days after, whenever you void or fix a ticket in ReSpark, depending on the type of accounting integration that you're using, there's always a chance that the accounting system has an old version, right? The two disagree, and someone needs to hunt down those differences by hand. Another one that we've seen commonly is customers getting mixed up. And customers in this context, they are either vendors or suppliers in ReSpark, or customers and consumers, depending on the system terminology that you're using. A simple one is, a customer set up one way in ReSpark and a slightly different way in your accounting system. So that transaction never goes through, or other mapping needs to apply. And nobody notices that until they're trying to balance everything at month end, quarter end, or year end. And then ultimately, I'd say reconciliation, right? It's a relatively loaded term, and sometimes it takes 10, 20, or even 30 steps, which is a drag on month end and ultimately a drag on resources. It's really just checking that those two sets of records agree. And when they don't, your bookkeeper or your accounting team spends the end of every month or the beginning of every following month matching things up, retying numbers, and chasing down what doesn't line up. Which means that, it's slow, and it's exactly the kind of work that makes people either stop trusting the numbers or not know where to look for their ultimate source of truth. So at the end of the day, the fix isn't necessarily a smarter way to copy data between two systems, although we've obviously rolled out a number of different enhancements to our financial integrations. At the end of the day, it's not having two systems at all. When your books live in the same place your transactions happen, there's no gap to reconcile, right? A scale ticket records its own accounting entries automatically, and the books basically keep themselves as you can focus on running the yard. And that's where we'll focus on the demo for the first portion. So Courtney, I'll pass it over to you to walk through our embedded general ledger.
Sounds good. All right. We're good. You guys can see this now.
Yep,
Okay,
all good.
awesome. So we're going to start with our chart of accounts just to get a little bit of a baseline here before we go through a few different examples of transactions. So one of the benefits of having these two systems be historical two systems be in one place is that all of your different accounts are talking to each other and you only have to set things up in one spot. So as we look through our cash and cash equivalent, main checking account, business checking account, the default cash drawer, our Canadian currency default cash drawer, all of these different accounts here are the same exact ones with the same exact naming conventions that we would use when we're actually going to pay out a CL ticket. These can be edited either here or in settings where you can change the name and then you'll see that name reflect. The rest of these should look pretty familiar to those of you familiar with any accounting software. We've got our inventory, liabilities, equity accounts, revenue, and expenses. We'll see some of these are locked because these are system settings. All that means is these different accounts will follow specifically with the transactions, the trade transactions happening in ReSpark. And because of that, the parents of those cannot be edited. Really, the benefit here is for simplicity. Any account that you've connected is tied to a very specific transaction in the system, and we want to make it as easy as possible to trace those back. So first, we're going to just go through a inbound ticket that I've already set up here. This one is a price complete inbound ticket with one material on it, valued at $25. It's in price complete. And another thing that we've included in having these two systems at the same time is if you're familiar with ReSpark, you know that a price complete trigger means this ticket has entered into inventory and it would be considered available for accounts payable. That's exactly the transaction that happens in the general ledger when you go and have anybody mark this ticket as price complete. I'm going to go ahead and pay this right now. And I'm going to use cash, pay this ticket. I will not pay it in cash. I will pay it with a check. Oh, goodness. Clearly, our customer is not compliant. So I'm going to do a slightly different example. We will go to this ticket for Michael, and we will mark this ticket as price complete. And now I will switch back to our journal entries, give it a quick refresh. Oh. And what we'll see are the AP accruals that happened both from the ticket I was referring to earlier for that $25 and then the ticket that we just paid out for Michael or marked as price complete here for Michael. So all of the logic of what's being debited, what's being credited, what accounts are supposed to be hit during certain transactions is taken care of for you. We can see that in this ticket specifically, we had a freight chargeback applied, and all of those different items are properly shown in the journal entries. Next, we'll show a little bit of the functionality here. So right now we're looking at posted. That's what's going to apply anytime a trade transaction happens in the system. All of these other statuses, draft or pending, apply more towards non-trade. And then reversed will show anytime that you have an action that gets undone. Like, for example, if we unpress completed this ticket and moved it back to scale complete, we'll see the reversal entry. Right here. So instead of this one being here, we now see the reverse entry for that transaction. Going to keep moving through the next few pieces here. So getting into the non-trade equivalent side on the bills functionality, what we have is the ability to enter in bills and invoices for non-trade. So we can take a quick peek at this one. This was a monthly electric bill. Somebody marked as rent expense. But here we can see our vendor is in place, bill number, date due, payment terms. as well as an address. So one of the benefits here of having all of this in a closed system is this Con Edison customer is actually considered a non-trade customer in ReSpark. So all of the functionality that you're used to when setting up those customers only has to be done once, including for non-trade vendors. So any preferred payment terms that you have, preferred payment method, primary contacts that you're used to setting up for the people who should be getting documents, all of that can be set up on non-trade customers as well. And that will show up when you go to make either a non-trade bill or invoice. If you would prefer to do so, you can also create a manual journal entry like the one we have here for rent expense. And instead of the bill or invoice taking care of the accounts payable or accounts receivable for you, this will happen automatically. This will happen manually, and you can create a rent expense, the rent payable, and then the dollar that was due immediately in this example. These can also be reversed directly from the screen and voided out. The last piece that we have right here are financial statements. So if we wanted to take a look, income statement for this month, obviously be a little preliminary, but we can generate this and then immediately generate the document or export to PDF as well as a CSV. All of these mappings back to our chart of accounts are also updatable, and you can choose default accounts for your expenses, for your revenue tax, as well as non-trade. And then all of this will flow properly as transactions occur. Materials get mapped in material properties the same way they would for any other setting on a material. And what this does is it allows you to just move through, complete your purchase transactions, inventory transactions, and sales transactions, and have all of this flow through to the record in journal entries without having to make any updates. All right. I know we do have some questions, but I think we will get to those at the end. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Gordon, to keep going.
Awesome. Thanks, Gordon. So to, again, just kind of summarize what we just walked through, everyone should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, I think general summary before we move on to the kind of finance agent. The first piece is, the accounting entries are effectively made by themselves after some light configuration during onboarding. So when tickets come in, ReSpark automatically writes the matching accounting record in journal entry format, which means that you don't need to either configure that in a separate system or second guess how your chart of accounts is getting populated throughout the month. Everything has a labeled bucket. We showed I'd say a relatively high level example with cost of goods sold broken out across ferrous and non-ferrous, and then freight expenses as well. All of these account codes are set up at the individual material level, so you can break things down to the level of granularity as you desire. So that could be number one HMS or busheling or unprepared steel versus just a larger cost of goods sold bucket. So at the end of the day, you guys have full control over that. And again, we're looking to extend this, as Courtney showed, to non-trade in addition to trade to ensure that you have a holistic solution for your entire accounting system. So in terms of again, broader availability, right now we're working with design partners to get single location operations live in June, and we currently do have a kind of July waitlist starting July 1 to begin configuring chart of accounts mappings and onboarding folks onto our embedded general ledger towards the end of July. So if that's interesting and you'd like to be a part of the waitlist, or you just have questions about what getting set up looks like, definitely reach out to either us or your customer success manager after the session to make sure that we can set up time. Cool. So moving on, after the general ledger discussion, we did want to carve out some time for the finance agent. So this is our kind of AI first take on settlement reconciliations and payment applications, and we wanted to start with one of the most painful jobs throughout the month, which is reconciling consumer settlements and ultimately getting paid. So at the end of the day, before we dive into specifics, I think the approach is important to touch on at least for a couple minutes. We at ReSpark, again, as I mentioned, aren't just interested in recreating a basic general ledger or just consolidating, what something like QuickBooks or another system already does. Obviously, you need all of the features and functionality that folks are used to, but ultimately catching up to them isn't the goal. What we want to do is build, AI first functionality to rethink how that financial work actually gets done instead of just putting the old way on a screen. And the finance agent is the first piece of that. So again, where we've heard a lot of pain and where reconciliations hurt the most is getting paid by your consumers. When a check shows up, it comes with a settlement document, that your bookkeeper has to then line up that paperwork against your own invoices. Many of our customers are actually updating the weights to reflect consumer weights, so you can better understand the variance analysis between your consumers and your outbound shipments, which is a number of different steps before the payment's even recorded. So either folks are matching in a spreadsheet, the system of reconciliation lives in one person's head. Folks are doing this one invoice at a time. There's a lot of manual typing and different math. And then there's a final payment difference, even after accounting for those consumer weights, different given other ancillary charges like quality deductions, quality differences, or even simple things like freight expenses. We're looking to flip that on its head. So how the agent changes that is really in three steps, and it doesn't just make the steps that you're doing today faster. What we really wanted to do is remove most of those steps and effectively allow you to make a decision on whether or not what the agent has drafted is actually correct. So you can start a session, pick the customer, upload a settlement document, and then move through again three steps confirming each one. Because your invoices already live in ReSpark, the agent reads them directly, and you don't need to use a third-party application to do that matching. So step one is obviously, matching itself. The agent reads the consumer settlement document, and for each line proposes which of your invoices it goes with things like confidence intervals based on shipment, date, or material matching. Step two is weight review. So for each matched invoice, it'll show your current weights next to what the document says side by side with the differences highlighted and the math already done. And if something doesn't add up, it'll flag and tell you by how much. And then the payment, right? The agent hands you a payment that's already has just the invoices from this check on it with the customer filled in. You enter the date and the amount, confirm that the invoice and the payment balance, and record it. So at the end of the day, the way I would think about this is, the agent will suggest and draft the work of the reconciliation, but you're always in control, right? The end user will always approve these, and the agent itself will never move money or change anything on its own. And then finally, just like all of our other agents across the platform, the agent will always show its work, right? How confident it is, what it actually matched on, and your numbers next to their numbers, so you are reviewing, not just guessing whether or not this is correct. So that was a quick intro. I'll flip it back to Courtney for the product demo.
Okay. So our settlement reconciliation, the first piece of our finance agent, lives directly inside the sales module. So right below where you would typically start to handle this process. And similar to the other agents that we have currently, you start by uploading a document. So I'm going to take one of the settlements that we received from our consumer here, upload, and then the first step for the agent to do is extract all of the different rows from that document, and then it's going to give me a proposal. So we're going to ground ourselves in a little bit of the information that we see here before we dive into some of the details. So first off, we have the customer. If for some reason you have multiple customers that have similar names, you can adjust and the agent will learn. Additionally, all of these other pieces are adjustable. So if we pick up the date and the date's incorrect, we can update that and the range will update accordingly. This is useful information because a lot of this is the first step that somebody will go through when they're manually reconciling all of this data anyway. You're going to have to find all of the invoices that you can see on the left here that relate to this customer, settled within this specific date range, which can get narrower or more broad as needed. And then you're going to go through and see where materials line up, where weights, if they do line up, are showing similarly, and prices. So our settlement document, which you can view at any time on the side here, the check at the top, and then the different invoices at the bottom, is going to go invoice by invoice that it matched on from the document from the consumer. So we found an outbound ticket in our system that matches this invoice ending in 407. And we can see this one is a very high confidence, 95%, because we think this is an exact match. Everything's looking correct here. The materials are matching, weight as well. So I can go ahead and accept this line. If there were more than one, you could go ahead and approve at the top. So I'm going to hit accept, and now the status will change to ready. One of the benefits of the way that we've set up the reconciliation agent is that we understand that this might not be an activity that's getting done all in one go. So certain other agents benefit from one session and you posting your work right away. Reconciliation might take significantly more time than that. You might get pulled into doing other things. So the benefit here is that you can go save your work, commit to the things that you have approved, and then come back and handle it later. Also beneficial if you need a secondary set of eyes or if somebody has to approve the things that you've put in here. So let's go down to one of our invoices with a little bit less confidence. So this seems to be one of the last invoices that we have in the system under this customer. And so we actually don't have a match here at all. And what you're going to see is the AI is very not confident about this. But what I wanted to showcase here was the variances that will always be highlighted whenever there is something that does not pertain. What I can do here is I can actually reject this outright and say, I actually don't want to reconcile this. Or if I had an invoice that I knew it matched with, I could change the invoice to a different one. So let's take a look here. See if we have any that match this material. Doesn't look like we do. So I'm just going to pick a different one for the sake of the example. We can switch over here. And now what you'll see is the invoice is matching based off of the lines that we've selected. So I approved this manually, and that overruled what the AI did, and now it's going to show as ready. If I wanted to at this stage, typically you wouldn't do this, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead anyway. You can commit these changes. And what's going to happen now is the consumer weight section of your invoice in ReSpark, not in the settlement reconciliation section, but the actual invoices themselves are going to be updated to reflect the gross fair net price that you see on this session. So I'm going to commit that, and then all of those changes will show up in those individual invoices, which you can take a look at separately in the invoices section over here. This one will still say ready for review because some pieces were not finished. But if this were completely finished, this one would just switch status to saying reconciled. Right.
Awesome. Thanks a ton, Cord. So to wrap things up, let's talk a little bit more about what's next. Because at the end of the day, similar to the other agents all around the ReSpark platform, we have no intention to stop. And I think that the finance element of our agents is, ripe for optimization and ripe for development. So more agents are definitely on the way after our kind of like, first finance agent. The one that's in progress is a freight reconciliation agent, which will allow you guys to upload carrier invoices, and then the freight reconciliation agent, which will be part of the finance agent, will be able to read those carrier invoices and draft the freight bills for you, or otherwise analyze the difference between the accrued freight expenses that's been added to inbound and outbound tickets from preset freight costs like freight lanes or supplier location specific freight or contract freight, and make that delta for you so that you can pay your freight carriers very, very in a very, very streamlined manner. So again, the pattern is going to be the same right? The agent will be drafting the work, but you'll still be able to either approve, modify, or reject the work that it's been done, and ultimately make the decisions on what happens next. So to kind of wrap up, again, there are two different ways to kind of leverage these features and these workflows in ReSpark. We obviously talked about the embedded general ledger. The first would be to migrate the accounting system over to ReSpark, and then the finance agent as well. We always like to think that these work best in tandem, but they are completely standalone workflows. So you can obviously still use an external system and obviously take advantage of our financial accounting integrations, which are also going nowhere, but still utilize the finance agent. And by the opposite side of the coin, you can use our general ledger and not onboard to our finance agent just yet. So again, two ways to do that. And in terms of how to get started, again, we have a July waitlist getting formed right now for our embedded general ledger. Our finance agent is in early access, so definitely talk to us about getting access there. Your customer success manager is going to be the main point of contact for both, and myself and Courtney are always around in addition to our support team. So again, thanks all for joining. Really excited to open it up for Q&A as well. Again, there is a dedicated question and answer section. There is also a webinar chat available as well, so feel free to toss questions in either. And Court, I could take a stab at the first couple before passing along to you, if that's all right.
Sure, feel free.
Great. So I'll read out the Q&A and then provide answers. So we have one asking around the depth of categories of grades that are available for GL code mapping. As mentioned, you can set any of your GL codes, right? So income, expense, inventory, APAR, et cetera, at the individual material level. So you will have the granularity and the flexibility to customize your chart of accounts how you want versus just ferrous and non-ferrous. And obviously, any follow-ups, just let us know. Next question. Are we able to pay non-trade bills by check directly from ReSpark? Answer is definitely yes. Any payment types that are supported on the trade side are also supported on the non-trade side, just as any other external system would as well. What is the mechanism to migrate from something like QBO to ReSpark? We would walk through a kind of chart of accounts side by side to migrate that chart of accounts first, after which we would migrate, current and or historical balances, and obviously look to analyze and recreate any key reports that folks are using to make sure that that process is as seamless as possible. Down the list. This is a great question around settlement reconciliation. The question is, we don't settle invoices as we do this by outbound ticket first. And the question is, if invoiced and then settled, would the settled amount update in something like QuickBooks? The answer is yes. In our ledger settings, you have the ability to toggle whether or not you want to sync invoices based on your weights or the yard weights or consumers' weights. And if you flip the consumer's weights toggles on, the invoice will only be synced after the consumer weights have been changed. So definitely take a look at that setting. Again, it's in the ledger section. And I think that will be the easiest one to do for you. Next question rather. Does the settlement reconciliation create an adjusting journal entry in the general ledger? The answer is yes. There are two different schools of thought here. Some folks like to edit the receivable directly. If they change consumer weights, other folks will create effectively a debit or a credit memo based on the delta in that receivable. You can do it both ways. So I think that would be option 2. Next question about inventory. Question is, does reconciliation affect inventory to the point where we would need to change inventory? The answer is no. The reconciliation only impacts your consumer weights on the invoice, and consumer weights are purely a financial or an invoice concept, not an inventory concept. Whatever your yard shipped out and whatever's on the outbound ticket is what will get relieved from your inventory. So you will not need to worry about changing inventory balances based on this. Cool. Next question on accounting integrations. Does this also work for those that use Xero? Yes, we do have an active Xero integration right now, in addition to QuickBooks, Sage, NetSuite, and so on and so forth. So that should not be a problem. Sweet. Next few questions. This is a three-part question. So number one, is there going to be incorporation into bank feeds? Yes, that is on the roadmap. We'll likely get started on that work later in Q3 and try to complete that by the fourth quarter to make sure that we are again kind of emulating the experience that you are used to. Number two, will you be able to utilize positive pay with the accounting piece? Yes, that is 100% true. And even before then, given the recent combination between RainSpark and Rematter to form ReSpark, we're actually layering in an automated positive pay with select regional banks right now. So definitely reach out to your customer success manager if you're looking to utilize that positive pay integration, because that does not need to be used with the accounting piece, at least for trade bills. And then number three, are there any automations for expenses coming in and auto uploading it into the system? Answer is definitely on our radar. There are a number of different bill pay automation tools when you think about something like Bill.com or Ramp that automatically integrate with email or other expense systems to make sure that expense matching is relevant. And we're looking to leverage or utilize those technologies within our general ledger as well. Let's keep rolling for another couple minutes and appreciate the engagement, guys. Next one is the idea to use ReSpark for accounting and leave QBO or to use in tandem. That's a great question. The end goal is to use ReSpark for accounting. Obviously, if there are other business lines that you have, maybe a waste division or a container rentals division, you might need to use QuickBooks Online in addition to ReSpark's general ledger. And even if you do elect to do that, the integration and the ability to consolidate those books should be a lot easier because we on the ReSpark side would be literally ledgerizing the entire thing. But ultimately, the idea is to consolidate accounting in ReSpark without the need for something like QuickBooks Online. Cool. Next question, will payroll integrate into the general ledger from payroll companies such as Paychex and ADP? Also, definitely a roadmap item. We'll likely be prioritizing expense automation prior to payroll integrations, but we'll obviously give you the ability to upload or import those payroll expenses to ensure that, again, you have a consolidated set of books, but definitely a roadmap item. Next one, does the finance agent pick up on consumer deductions / adjustments? Answer is yes, 100%. So on the invoices directly, there's a section for incremental fees and things like that. You can also log deductions and adjustments directly in the consumer weight section. So all of that would effectively just be automatically ported over through the finance agent reconciliation. Sweet. Next question, if we have multiple yards set up, will the finance agent be able to decipher across all yards to reconcile, or will the settlement have to be uploaded into each yard? This would be the example where the customer is paying multiple invoices that are for different yards. The answer is yes, but not right out of the gate. What we're doing right now is building out more robust functionality on yard level allocation of organizational invoice payments, i.e., organizational mode sales, generally speaking. That should be available in court. Obviously, keep me honest, next month. After which we will layer in the finance agent capabilities to be used at the organizational level, not just at the individual yard level. Cool. Last few, and for the ones that we don't get to, a member of our team will reach out right after this to make sure that all questions are answered. Question here around security. Can security be set up so only certain roles can alter settings? 100%. A lot of the GL configuration, just to make sure that we can honor the right roles and permissions, a lot of the GL configuration will actually happen in the general ledger section. And similar to the rest of the permissions throughout ReSpark, you'll have the ability to set either no access, view-only access or view and edit access. And that will be true for the entire module and certain tabs. So you could have folks, for example, be able to see your chart of accounts, but not make any new accounts. And similar goes for different material types. If you have the GL on in ReSpark, certain folks might not be able to create materials because they wouldn't be able to set the default GL accounts. So very, very important part of all of this. Last couple here. We'll be able to job cost. Also a roadmap item, not out of the gate. We'd actually love to have a separate conversation in terms of job costing, whether that's in a demolition context or in another context, to make sure that we are building that the right way. But that won't be part of the original scope. Next question: can a customer's payment be applied directly to a GL account instead of an invoice? Yes, 100%. We ran out of time, maybe a little bit, but on the non-trade side, you can create both non-trade bills and non-trade invoices. And regardless of if it's a trade or a non-trade invoice, those payments can be applied directly to a GL account. Back to the security question, one more. Can you lock GL accounts so only the machine can post? 100%. This kind of goes back to roles and permissions. It's expected that only one or two folks, just like only one or two folks will likely have admin access to QuickBooks, would be able to set GL accounts. And on a per transaction basis, a user will have no access to changing the GL accounts. Those will all be driven by either the expense codes that you set up or the expense and income and inventory codes, et cetera, that are tied to specific materials. Also, on permissions, other one, will you guys be establishing any user groups to help the integration and implementation of this go smoothly? 100%. One of the things we're working with our design partners on is to better understand the roles and permissions that they're used to with their current accounting software, and making sure that we can emulate those in ReSpark to make sure that, again, the migration goes off without a hitch from a one-to-one mapping basis. Cool. Court, you got anything else to add? I think that might be just the time we have.
No, I think that was awesome. Lots of engagement. It was great to see.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if we didn't get to specific questions, one of our team members will reach out right after this, or at least the next kind of day or so. As we mentioned, this webinar was also recorded, so we'll send that out after the fact to all attendees and folks who registered but were not able to attend. And again, definitely reach out to either us, your customer success managers, or our support team to get access to these features. And we can't wait to keep building. Thanks again, guys.